Hi. All right. Hello, everybody. Sorry for the slightly late start tonight. Life intrudes, don't you know? And there's a little bit of a delay in getting everything all set up. And I have a feeling that there's something funky going on here. So let me just hang on for a second here. Let's bang on that for a second. I think something weird was going on, but we'll just sort of leave that be for now. Oh, I gotta fix this too. Hang tight. Okay, I think we are back right. Okay, so sorry about that. I've been decided that one of the things I want to do over the course of this Devember is step up my stream game a little bit. So you might have noticed if you were watching the introduction that partway through it flipped and cut to one with sort of animated text, something I'm trying out. And I also have one theoretically for the end screen and for um, the I better double check that that's actually a thing. The an intermission screen, which I've never really had a chance to use, but I think there's currently some issues with it. Let me just check something real quick. But expect over the month as we go on to these things to sort of get just a little bit better over time, as we try to make this a little bit more entertaining. You may have noticed that it took me a while to end up with lower thirds on the bottom, and eh, okay. That really seems like it probably should have been okay, but it wasn't, and that's weird. But we'll worry about that in a minute here. In any case, we are here for Devember day 3, and what we're gonna work on here is a little bit of what we talked about in the prior live stream, right near the end there. You remember we were working on a command to uh, copy YouTube links to the clipboard in a variety of ways, and there was a bunch of code in there that seemed like maybe it should be some sort of universal helper thing. And I think that is sort of what we want to get on tonight. So we're going to try to refactor that code out and make things a little bit better, and then go from there. One of the things I'd really like to do is um, have better data handling. Right now, we're just using the dictionaries that are coming back from the request. I'm using Dotty in a couple of them to make getting at the contents of those a little bit easier. But I think maybe we might want to play with potentially some sort of wrapper class for getting at the actual content of the data, maybe a named tuple, maybe something else. Um, to sort of clean it up and formalize exactly what it is that it's supposed to look like. So with that out of the way, I guess we're probably pretty good here. Let me just click a button here because I want to test something. But we're going to go ahead and jump on into the stream proper. Hello, fellow Sublime Text fanatics. Odat Nerd here. Welcome to Devember Day 3, the second live stream all through December. Uh, Hopefully you joined in on the original live stream so you know what we're doing here because we don't really want to recap it every single time, but I will if anybody asks to. And because there wasn't a live stream yesterday, I did push out a devlog update to say what changed. So if you want to stay abreast of what's happening in between the live streams, that's a good way to do it. Now, my original plan for that was, in fact, to do that the following morning, but I decided if I'm not going to do a bunch of editing anyway, maybe what I should do is actually record my my devlogs right here at this machine using the same setup I used to live stream, and then I I can show actual code off to the side there. If you watch the devlog, you know what's going on. And in that case, the preparation for that is pretty minimal. I just sort of have to tweak the audio up a little bit to make it a little bit sweeter and trim a little bit off the beginning and the end so that it doesn't have the fumbly start. And otherwise, good to go. So in that case, I'm just going to drop these things out probably the evening of, unless I stay up far too late working on stuff, then you can expect it the next day. But if you follow me on Twitter, you will totally get at that information. And let's see, I'm not sure that I have a thing for that. Now I'm just going to just test something here real quick. Just bear with me because I was sort of playing with my stream setup a little bit earlier. And for some reason, part of this does not seem to be working. That is not the thing that we're interested in. This is the thing we're interested in. We'll see what we can see here. It really seems like it should probably be working okay. But for some reason, it is not. And similarly, this one. I know this is scintillating viewing, isn't it? But this isn't what I wanted to have time to do this before the stream, but life sort of got all out in front of me and it did not work out as much as I would have liked. Let's just double check what I did for this one. Loop, restart, show nothing, close when inactive, and whoop. Now that really seems like it should be working just dandy. It really does. Hello, Ben. We are experiencing minor technical difficulties in things that don't technically matter. So I'm probably going to have to fiddle with this sometime later on, I suppose. I don't know why it is the case, but it is. One of the things that I set up today was I augmented the stream control panel for what I use to live stream. So if I tap a button, I can make my big fat head go away because sometimes I point out stuff in this corner of the thing and I forget that there's not actually the ability to see that because my face is there. So I can drop that and bring it back, and I can also bump myself around to various other parts of the screen as well if I want to, although for some reason that one doesn't seem to work. There we go. And boop. Having dry fingers makes for not the greatest experience when it comes to touching the tablet screen on occasion. But I guess we are probably good to go on this thing here. So we're going to continue working on some Devember stuff. The stuff I worked on yesterday, I added a custom log panel, so anything that happens gets logged up in there. So if we said we wanted to list videos, you can see it requesting authorization, saying exactly what's happening, getting some stuff. We could say details for a video, and it needs to fetch the channel information for that. Technically, it should probably be doing that for the other one too, but this is one of those things The original Devember version of this was extremely rudimentary. Hello, Ashwin. Welcome to the stream. The original version of this was incredibly rudimentary. There was just a couple of things here. It wasn't even really a thread, and I sort of worked that out after the fact. One of the things I thought was, hey, maybe we should have information about the channel too to be able to do more management things. And then, of course, if I pick one of these things, uh, we can see that it fetched the video details for that and got the information for it. So we're all good to go on that particular front. Probably behooves us to maybe have some sort of syntax in this particular window. But that's sort of what I did yesterday and worked out some logging. And had a couple of weird intractable problems while I was setting that up. And it was kind of it was an interesting thing because this YouTube editor package runs in the legacy plugin host for Python 3.3, and that's because all of the primarily it's because package control doesn't support dependencies for the newer plugin host yet, and I wanted to make it easy to get that gigantic super dependency installed into Sublime for myself and for anybody else that wants to play with this. So we're sort of locked to that plugin host for now. So this package is running in that plugin host. So I had the code in this yawn logging panel here. So again, this is one of those things I tend to do in a fair number of my packages. This one is actually a version of what Ashwin probably saw us working on when we were working on Sublinet. This is a very similar thing to that. Um, when it generates a log output, it can send it to, if it's an error, it displays it into the console, displays an error dialog and leaves. If you're not saying that you want it in the panel, it displays here. This would probably actually have a return after it now that I think of it, but I sort of ran into a problem testing it. If you want it to be in a dialog, it can be in a dialog, and if you want it to be in the panel, then it sends this to the output panel in every window, and then we have setup code down here that sets up the panel and finds if you give it a source window, it'll copy the contents of that panel out. There's also an event listener that listens for the on new window event. So anytime you create a brand new window, it gets the exact same log panel as all of the other windows had, which is something that for my own personal use, I like because if I was to be in this window and log in and then go to this window to list details, if I want to see what's going on, I want to see what happened for the whole thing. I don't want to see only what happened in this window and not what happened in the other window. And also, I don't want to have that information whoops, I almost pressed the wrong key. I don't want to have that information clogging up the console if I can possibly help it. But here's the fun thing that I had testing this whole operation. I had the log function in here. I was doing some stuff. So then I jumped into the console and said like from YouTube editor.lib.logging import log and got a thing. Well, I mean, it's not technically I think I moved it around since then, but I get the log function, right? Assuming that I did the import correctly and there weren't other things that were kind of funky, which is something that we're also going to try to work on tonight. And then I run log and some stuff and I get a result. And I'm not too happy with that result. It didn't quite do what I wanted. So I come up into the code, I make some changes, I save the file, I reload the package. I come back in here, I re-import the symbol, I run the log, doesn't seem like anything actually changed. And I thought, well, that's weird. Did I not reload? Reload the package, re-import the symbol. Still doesn't look like the fix does anything. So I go back to the code. Maybe this code doesn't do what I think it does. I don't know. It seems to do what I do it does. Go back to here, run the test again. Doesn't work. I come back in here, test some stuff. After a couple of iterations, I put a print statement in here that said, is this actually working? Just at the top level to see if this function was even being called. I mean, obviously it was, but what's going on here? And it wasn't printed here. And then Big Brain realized that this is a plugin in the Python in the 3.3 plugin host, but the input defaults to Python 3.8. So do that. to make sure that things are probably going to work the way you want in the appropriate plugin host. And then suddenly testing started to work. So I actually wanted to only spend about an hour fiddling with stuff last night because I had some other things to do, but it ended up being longer than that because it took me longer than an hour to retrofit this code in here. Important lesson learned about multiple plugin hosts here, and then I went on and did a little bit of extra stuff anyway because I didn't want my whole devlog to be, so I'm an idiot, and I was trying to test things in the wrong console input, but eventually I got it, and now what we have is a fancy printf. Well, that's it for November day 2. Goodbye. You know, not the greatest thing. Now, I think this particular thing here, and this is an error I've kind of been fighting a little bit, is I have some issue ports things from the network manager and the network thread and some other things, but some of those threads or some of those modules want to import from the core. So this tries to import that, that tries to import back to here. Things go all pear-shaped and everything explodes in your face. So that wasn't the greatest sort of thing there. So in order to fix that here, I just lazy load it by saying that the very first time that it's actually needed, which is, if I actually did something like this, whoops, down here. Oh, come on, man. Cut a guy a break, why don't you? Down in this particular area, it loads it or imports it rather the very first time it's needed. And I ran into another place in the network code. Here, as a matter of fact, you might notice that this is one of those situations where when I quit last night, everything worked great, and then I quit Sublime and restarted it, and the package didn't load because it was unable to import this for that very same reason. Let's streak that out. So I think one of the things I wanted to do, if you remember from the last stream, was in the uh, this command here. We wanted to take this code that generates a video URL in a variety of different ways and try to abstract it out into something that could be used from here and in other places. And of course, the one way to do that would be to just basically have a format string like this and then have it pass in the video ID. But it seems like it would be neat to have it work from a view as well. So I think we maybe want a couple of those things. So I want to do some of that refactoring. Incidentally, I don't know if you may not have watched the devlog from yesterday, but there was totally a bug in our code. Our is enabled required this line as well because it's important not only that this command only be enabled in a YouTube window, but that it be enabled in a YouTube window that actually has a video ID associated with it, which not all of them do. If you create a new empty window that's not associated with the video yet, um, then as a matter of fact, there is no entry in there, and the links that it generates are all funky and weird. Let me just go ahead and hit that. My fonts is sending me an email because I was looking at fonts earlier and being kind of confused because there's two fonts in a family that was $5.99 for each individual one, or for a deal you could get them both for $5, but somehow their price for that ended up being a 1 cent more than buying them not in the bundle pre-tax. So I added them to the shopping cart to see if it was going to actually change in the shopping cart, and it didn't. And now they're sad that I added something to the cart and didn't actually buy it. Um, so that's one thing we're going to do. Now, I think it maybe behooves us to have a function down here named utilities. What is it in the core that needs logging? Loaded needs it. So that is definitely something that is going to be needed in this. Setup log panel is only needed in the one place. Those things are all needed here. I'm thinking that some of the other things from the core, like these things here, could be in a new utilities library that doesn't need to import anything else. Things would only import from it, and then hopefully that would solve our weird problem with dependency loops. I'm not sure if the logic on that is sound because I've been confounded by this one before in the past. But it seems like that might be a good idea, so to say. So what's the best way to pull something like that off? And I'm trying to think what do we want to have in there? This seems like it might be a utility. To be honest, I'm not entirely sure why this is even a function and not. These ones are core to the functionality of the package, so I'm cool with those being in here because that's originally what this was intended to be. These couple of things were sort of a side effect of that. This is another one of those things that I like to do in packages if I'm using syntaxes, because I like to keep the contents of the package nicely laid out, but it's a pain in the butt to specify this. So you can just provide the stub name and it'll pluck it out. I've also in the past implemented this where you specify the name of the syntax file and it actually uses find resources to find it to get the actual path. So it's even more dynamic than this. But I think let's go ahead and say that we actually want to call this, we'll say utils, what the heck. So close that and reopen it. Sometimes if you save as a file or from one file name to another, things like the git tracking still track the underlying file and not the newly named file because I don't think it notices that things have been renamed. I think that's what's going on. I notice it occasionally while I'm doing stuff, and I just recently I came with the idea that perhaps that's the reason why that's actually happening. But I haven't had a chance to try to reproduce it as of yet. Okay, so let's see. Syntax is only used in one place. That's only used. Mm, right, but I guess this is sort of an issue here, isn't it? Unless this was lazily loaded in the utility thing. We could augment this function to make it cooler in a slightly different way, right? And then this part doesn't have to happen here. Oh, I wanted to do this too. I have this theory that everything in the log, at least for now, should have some sort of common prefix on it to make it easier to look at this stuff. So I probably have a couple more of those that need to be tweaked. But, okay, so let's say if we're in the core, let's say we don't want to have this part here. This does need to happen after the plugin is loaded, though. Any particular reason why I couldn't import the setting thing in from the utilities into this file and then make these augmentations to the actual value that it has when the plugin is loaded? That should work, right? Seems like it should. Let's do that. Syntax, settings, and sort videos are the things that are no longer in this file. I think that's the way we want to go with that one. This is all actual core type stuff. So let's say we like that. And then in the utilities, we don't need that. We don't need that or that. This one can stay. And that and that. And then all these ones go away. I.e. not what I meant to do. Sometimes that multi-tab thing confounds me slightly. I'm still not. I haven't played with it enough in order to become more comfortable with it and what it's doing. Okay. Certainly not going to need either of those things or this for this to work. Technically, we don't even need those things, but we'll call it good enough for now. So that's there. That means we need to edit this too. do. Ashwin says, I wish there was a way to disable multi-tab. It gets annoying when you need to delete multiple files from the sidebar. Oh, yeah, if you do something like this. I could see that. For things like the thing that I just hit, key bindings could be changed, but yeah. I guess we technically don't actually need those files to be open, do we? No, we do not. We're sort of on file overload here. I already forget what we called those things. This, and this. Whoops. Let's try that again. Maybe we don't even need to do specific things. We could just do it like I did here, right? Although I'm not entirely sure why I imported everything from core. If I could have just done it that way. So I know why I did it this way, because we need individual events and commands, but probably could have done it this way too, right? For stuff like, for some reason, I don't know why, stuff like this, when it's laid out this way, I kind of like the looks of that better because it makes it more clear. That probably doesn't make a lot of sense. It probably makes various uh, code things unhappy too. Theoretically, if I do that, does that do, oh, what was that error there? Oh, that was the other thing. Okay, so that kind of seems to work. Now, of course, the ultimate test of this sort of thing is what happens on a fresh restart. And okay, yeah, that part's broken, but I expected that part to be broken because it's actually trying to import stuff that is broken. Oh, I got to modify that one too. Right. We need to reload that and that. No, that actually should work, shouldn't it? Oh, it's unhappy because that command tried to import something that wasn't there. I getcha. Yeah. We're rocking tea in one cup and coffee in another. I'm still sort of recovering from some illness, and I think excessive coffee consumption was sort of playing into. Hmm, yeah, cool. I remember to put sugar in it. I think that was sort of playing into why I kept feeling bad for as long as I did. So I'm trying to take it easy for a while until everything settles back to an even keel. Okay, so let me fix these load errors one at a time. List videos is trying to do something. You can import that, but you have to say from, where are we in the sidebar? Where are we in the module structure for this? We're in commands. So up one directory to source, and then into utils, import sort videos. See, for the YTE syntax path, one thing would be to use the new syntax API to get the path info. Indeed, yeah, that is totally something that could happen here. Although I guess that would require you providing something like, oh, and that reminds me, I noticed the other day that hidden syntaxes aren't available in any of those things. So that might cause an issue here. Now that you say that, someone was asking a question in the Discord, and some experimentation discovered that any syntax that's hidden doesn't get listed in the syntax list or looking things up by scope. You can only do that with public things. So I think these syntaxes are actually hidden. Yeah, so in that case, I don't think those would actually look up. Definitely something to look into, though. I sort of only played with that for a brief bit. Where are we unhappy now? We might need to quit and restart because automatic package reloader having issues is something that is a little bit, okay. Video details has something too. It's doing the same thing. Okay, we clear the console. Whoops, that's not what I meant to do. Clear the console, pardon me. Okay, Sublime plugin, ba ba ba. All right, let's quit and fire that up again. New window is importing some stuff. Okay. Do, do, do. To be honest, I can't remember when I implemented the version of this for this syntax thing for, I think it was HyperHelp was the one where I did it where you just provide the syntax name and it figures out the path. I can't remember why exactly it was that I did that. I think I was playing around with moving it around a lot of different ways or something, and I wasn't entirely sure. Getting closer. Yeah. I mean, I probably could have just searched for all of the places, but this one's got 2. I like the acid test of being absolutely sure that everything has been caught. Okay, now plugin loaded in core. Cool. That's the thing that we need to modify next. Oh, also I should probably save that. I'm kind of surprised that that was working as well as it was, to be perfectly honest. I guess it had all of the content and more. Maybe that's why it was having problems reloading things. Source.utils import. Does that look like the right thing? Well, that's happy about it now, so that's always a good call. And that's happy about it, so that's always nice. We can still list videos maybe. Seems like. Links are working. Details for this one seems to still work. So we got that going and that actually reloads. Cool. Now we search for this. No, not what I called it. Man. There's a few places where that one. So here. And dot source.utils import. That seems like something that should probably work. And then we don't have to do this. So all of this part can go away. And theoretically, that doesn't need to be there either. So let's give this a little bit of a test here. It's so delightful how quickly Sublime restarts. From, and we're doing this the wrong way. I know that right now, but source, we do pull it that way. Is that not in source? This is the bit that's sort of confounding me. It's in. This is the one that's here, right? No, 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 sorry. We're exporting it from there. That's not the one that's in there, right? Sometimes that indent kind of gets you a little bit confused. So you should be able to say from source.utils import, should you not? What if we did this? Still no? Oh, wait a minute. What was that error? Error messages are pretty sparse. Oh, got to import it first, right? Well, I mean, it seems like it's in there. Oh, maybe if I actually did it the way that I thought I should do it and not the way that I actually did it, it would actually work. Ooh, that's interesting. No output panel. That's odd. Let's try restarting and see. Oh, look, now it's having a problem importing stuff in a way that it wasn't just a moment ago. That's great. Compared to something like VS Code, which needs a big old pile of node modules garbage, ST plugin reloading is nearly instantaneous. Python was a good choice. I tend to agree. I think I've mentioned this on a stream in the past. I kind of wished it was Lua for a brief period when I first started because I didn't really know Python. I mean, as if there's an argument for me knowing it now based on why this is having such an issue. But I agree that it is a great choice for something like this. Very easy to learn and pick up, nice syntax, very rich library, which is definitely the area that Lua falls down in for something like this, particularly if you're going to be dealing with text. So let's see, if we trace this back, oh wow, that's totally doing the wrong thing. How did that ever work before? This can't possibly have ever worked. That's not where log is. Oh, actually, yeah, it is, isn't it? It's in logging. I'm thinking of core. Core imports those, and it can't find the name log. It can't find the name log in lib. Log setup log panel request. I mean, it seems like that's never going to get old, huh? Still no. Oh, and Ashwin says, I wonder why Lua failed in the aspect of libraries. I mean, the language is simple enough. That is very much because it was designed first for being a data description language for people to specify stuff. with a little bit of code in it in the very early versions like Lua 1. And then as it started maturing as a language, the design decisions are all steered towards the idea that it is meant to be embedded in your application to provide exactly the scriptability that you need. So the library is very bare bones for what it can do because it strives to be small and tiny, and any library that you need is up to you to provide, which is sort of the flip case of like Python and Perl. I've never really got on with Perl, for the same reason that I'm not a super fan of like Node.js. All you have to do to run a simple script that you downloaded from the internet is download 3/4 of the internet into a directory on your system, and then you can run it because Node.js and Perl both seem designed to be completely useless out of the box without a ton of libraries. I mean, that's sort of what it seems like. Node.js has 10 steps up on Perl, at least back in the day, because this has been a better part of a decade or more that I've ever fiddled with Perl. I assume it's still around in a thing, uh, in that either NPM or Yarn will get the stuff you want. But every time I wanted to do something with Perl, it was a nightmare of Googling and figuring out what magic things I need to pull down from CPAN in order to do something. And it was never cool. Much like this, I gotta say, of all the things that I expected to be a roadblock, this module that clearly has stuff in it not having stuff in it. Let's do one of these and get us into a clean state, sort of. I'm guessing maybe that stuff isn't in there because the module didn't fully load. So if we follow this back, editor imported everything from lib, which asks logging to import to get stuff from logging. Logging gets that from the settings. Source imports core. Core imports logging. So I guess this is another, we've roundabouted an entire dependency loop here. I guess that means that maybe this utils thing should be in the lib directory and not in the source directory, because it's technically a utility library, so to speak. If editor goes into lib and lib stays entirely inside lib and doesn't have to come out to grab stuff from somewhere else, that is probably for the best. I mean, why not? Move utils to lib. And then do that. Well, actually, let's do this, because we can always fix that later, right? Oh, also take it out of there. Yeah, we'll actually do this. And then we can come up to this one, and this one can load utils. And or we could actually do it, explode it out the way we're doing here. Maybe that makes more sense. And the things that are in here are this, this, and this. Oh, and I guess I probably could need to put that down here too, right? Oh, whoops, don't do that. Okay. Now all those things that we did before are totally going to be broken again in exciting new ways. This is totally a recursive descent into madness right here. Who knew that so much thought had to go into how you fiddle-faddle your nesting around? So the issue now is, how many places is this used? Let's do it this way this time. It's defined there. New window imports it. All those files that we technically already touched, I guess, is probably the way to look at that, right? So I guess like that. Yeah, that's probably the way to go. From here, oh shoot, I mean, that's a 3, isn't it? Inside of commands, up 2 to go to source, up 1 more to go to the root into lib. And it only needs that one. And oops. Boy, I got the real have I ever mentioned in one of these streams that the big no-no for something like this is copying and pasting things before you actually verify that they work? Because maybe they're broken and then you're very unhappy about stuff. Did this fix anything, or did we just squish the problem to a different side of the balloon? Loading editor, loads lib. Initializing lib loads login and setup panel, which pulls things from source utils. Oh, logging still needs to be fixed. This is still broken, and this needs to change too. There, let's try that. Oh, did I miss one? Or is this that that hole that doesn't necessarily work? Oh, whoops. Okay. It seems like everything loaded. The panel is back. That's good. Again, list videos, and there's a bunch of those. And that works. And details. And that works. Cool. So that seems to work. And then we do this. Okay, it still seems to load. Panel has still got some stuff in it. All right, so let's do this. Just very quickly, whoops, the things we want are launching YouTube thread. Search for all the places where our logging is actually happening. Oh, let's actually quote things properly. This one. And this one are 2. Those ones are commented out, and all of the other ones have some sort of prefix. Except for this one, which is an error, and that one's an error, and that one's an error. All right, so, man, do we have enough windows open here? Let's shut some things down. After only 35 minutes, we got ourselves back to the state where things actually work. But maybe they actually work better now, fingers crossed, although I had the same thought last night and that didn't go so well for me. So let's go ahead and pull this out, verify everything in here. Oh, there's a couple of things we want to fix here, isn't there? So one thing we have to do so that we don't go mildly crazy is this, which I switched for the devlog that I recorded for yesterday. If you weren't here for the beginning of the stream, one of the synopsized points of things that I mentioned was that on days where there's not live streams, devlogs probably will happen the same night because I decided to record them in my streaming setup here. So we don't have to worry about getting a camera set up and doing all of the extra editing that made me want to push it to the next day. So if we go through all of these things one by one of the things we added is the utils library. We're importing some stuff and it's in there, so that's cool. We no longer need to lazy load this. We can just load it from utilities, so that's good. Yeah, we'll add that in there because I already pushed commits up. We no longer pull that from. Oh, this one still needs to be tweaked. Shoot. But that's easy enough to do because now it's just in here. We can do that. And then we don't need any of, well, we don't need this. We just get rid of that entirely. And that entirely. So it used to import it from source core, but now it imports it from there. Yeah, that's cool. And, oh yeah, we want to tweak this one too. We definitely don't want that version. We definitely don't need that. And we definitely don't need that either. Yeah, that's right. We don't need to import all the symbols from core if we're just gonna shoot core out directly the way it is. Why did I decide to do that? I don't know, but maybe we'll cycle back to that and amend this commit if everything still seems to work when we get to the end of this epic saga. So now it needs to pull sort videos and YTE setting from lib. That seems totally safe. And sort videos from lib and that and that. We now import that setting. Those are gone now. Yes, yes, they are. And utils is a new thing. Oh, I see why one of those was there. The one in source is the one we don't want. So let's do this. And standard live stream rules apply for this on days we're actually going to commit stuff, which I definitely want to do for this because this is a lot of action here. I'm just going to use simple commit messages here and then verbose them up after the stream happens before I push them up. So everything seems to be working there. We'll just verify by quitting and restarting and making sure that, oh look, that something is broken. What did I forget? Oh, they were still actually pulling it from one in the core. See, this is why we test this sort of thing. We can just do this. Okay, and everything still seems to be good. So we'll just quickly come over here and say Yeah, no, we totally remember to do that, and I challenge you to prove otherwise, aside of watching the playback of the stream and seeing what's actually happening. Okay. Well, what was that other thing that we were going to fiddle with in here? No, in here. Things in core are loaded, unloaded. That, that. I may have decided the reason why I wanted to do this is because there's so many of these things, and it's easier to say, if something from this wants to import one of those, how is it actually doing it? It's going down one and into core. So everything in the core doesn't actually really need to be exposed per se. So I think that's probably just cool the way it is, and we'll let that slide until further notice. Now, what was the actual thing that we wanted to do here? Um, oh, I wanted to test this thing too, but let's do this first. Hmm. Da, da, da. I remember. There it is. Sample. So just to verify here, TSC proj is the file type that we want, and that's what we get. Now, time codes don't work in the first line, so that's an interesting thing. I think we need to fix that in the syntax. So let's do that right away while we're remembering. Oh, is possible. Maybe this is something to kick aside. So the main rule in this says that the very first line in the file should be scoped as that, and then it should do this. So that makes it semi-problematic for there to be a time code in the first line, doesn't it? Unless the syntax was set to match a new line and have the new line tell it that that's what pushes it into the remainder, right? Which I guess means, would that mean everything has to be scoped entity name function on the first line and by default until that? Because I think that's sort of a tricky thing to pull off. Hmm. Ashwin, you're a syntax guru now. What do you make of this situation? Well, I mean, I guess Ben's a syntax guru too, since he totally wrote the thing that allows you to create a syntax from a completely different syntax. I think I'm stumbling in my head on the idea of first line special. Like, that sort of breaks handling of that. Oh, I didn't have a question per se, but What we want is the first line of this syntax to be specially scoped in some fashion, you know, as we mentioned the other day. Oh, right, that's not going to work. Lorem blah blah. Because it's the part of the description that appears before the fold, so it's nice to have it visually distinct in the file to let you know. But time codes thus don't work in this line because the syntax naively, I mean, well, extract that part out. Whoops. The syntax naively says the very first match is take the entire line and do this, and then go into the scope that does everything else. So I'm not sure if there's a cool way to have everything on the first line up to the first new line scoped as that. I mean, the first thing that comes to mind is a match rule that looks like this. That does it, so the very first new line does it, but then how do you handle all of the rest of the stuff on the line and give it that scope? The only way to do that is to push a context on the first line. Yeah, I agree. It's not necessarily a super. That's why I think like I don't know that I'm ever going to put a time code in the first line. Would that go a little something like minus match for nothing and have it push in directly with a metascope or something, and then have the match on the new line do a set to the other context? Well, this is all about learning stuff, right? Let's play. This stuff is all in Git. Uh, that would look a little something like that, right? Oh, first line. Would probably be some sort of set. Oh, push first line. I'm envisioning something structured like this. I mean, obviously this scope wouldn't be here. Although that does have some, well, I mean, everything else still kind of works. Just that part wasn't actually, you know what we can do here? Let's do that. And then we can sort of fiddle with this a little bit and actually see it updating over there. That seems like a nice way to go. Now, which part does the meta content scope go on? Is that here? Oh. Yeah, that's not right. That's not right at all. Oh, I mean, I totally had it down there, I think. Right? Now I'm all conflustered both what I had previously. I think that goes here. I can't remember what the distinction is between that and that, to be perfectly honest. Really? Are we going to be a jerk about that now? Wait, why is it? Oh. Was it mad about that the whole time? Oh, okay. Never mind. Okay, well, that was... Oh. Nope, all right. Well, we totally caused something to happen. I assume that should probably be a set since it's just going to jump from one to the other. We don't necessarily need that stack to pop out of. We're sort of going off the rails here slightly. I don't have syntax documentation in this thing yet, do I? I don't think I do. Whoops. I don't think I do. Ah, I'm blind. Thank you. Never hurts to to all text while the string context is on the stack. All right, well, isn't a set like a pop and a push? Yeah, we just want Metascope for this. Including the context, including the patterns that push it onto the stack and pop it off. I guess my question is, why is the whole thing the body if it's in this? I guess I could actually do this now, couldn't I? It's still in main. So it doesn't necessarily matter what this is. Whoop, no, no, no. What's the magic of this one? Since you mentioned it. Do, do, do. Do, do, do. Oh yeah, I guess I could have shortened that up a little bit, couldn't I? It doesn't necessarily need to do that. It can do that. This part can just go up here. No, that doesn't work, does it? Because in any time it doesn't match anything, it's going to hit that. So that's not cool. Although it works, so there's that. Although weirdly, that one doesn't get the. Oh, yeah, right. The whole thing is still doing that. Let's look at that again. Oh, I guess maybe that is a slightly better idea instead of nothing. But it has to match on something, huh? Take that back a little bit. At least they're given the magic of the thing. I guess the tendency here is that hmm, hmm, the in the sample one here that's pushing something, it can do it based on knowing that there's maybe some text there and it should do something special. But this could be very freeform. So I don't know that that's necessarily something that is the handy for this. Though I am also, oh, let's hang on a second, mildly confused by what it's actually doing there. Yeah, all right. Well, maybe we'll just worry about that on another day, because that's less interesting at this particular juncture. The best way to pull something like that off, maybe I should just bite the bullet and apply a region to it or something. Okay, so we don't need that either for the time being. Let's do a little bit of that. I got a lot of stuff open that I don't necessarily need, and it's kind of crunky. Okay. So the thing that we wanted to actually do here is create something that can get a URL from a window. I mean, there's two things going on here. Let's just copy all of this for now. Copy that and just comment it out so we have something to look at. And now let's go ahead and do that and that. Whoops. Ah. And that. So let's say two things we want here just to make this a little bit nicer is def make video link. And then we could say video ID and time code equals none, like this. And then this would be given a video ID, video ID and an optional time code, return back a link to that particular video on YouTube. And then we can say time code can be none, a number, or a string in, whoops. So what we want to do simplistically is return that. Maybe we'll actually use the same symbol as we used in the thing there. Right? This is the most simplistic possible case of this. And is it super interesting to have a function that does just this? No, it's not. So this is the bit where we do sort of what we had here. Query is going to be equal to an empty string. And then we can say if time code isn't none, then we actually want to do something with this. What that is, we don't care. And then we'll go ahead and wrap that and say query for that one, and this will also be %s. So by default, this is just going to generate the video link and do nothing else, which is what we like. And we can say if is instance time code and string, then to do time code is equal to this. Well, no. This. Let's declare more intent here. None may be returned if the time code provided isn't in a valid format. Let's say valid format, I think, is the better way to go for something like that. Okay, so that way we can actually do some testing here. We're going to eat the exception and return none, but maybe we might actually want to say we can just do, we can't do log from here, but we could import it. No, we can't. We can't import logging here because the log functions are in logging, and logging imports from us. So if we try to import that, we're going to get all unhappy. So we'll just put a print in here. YouTube editor dot was given in got a bad time code. Let's say that. So we definitely know that that all works out. Okay, and then we can say query is equal to, we have a line down here for this. We just copy that, throw it here, and say time code. And I think that's all we need for this particular aspect of this. We'll leave that part there for the time being. But so now the time code could, if it's not provided, it skips all over that. It just appends an empty string on the end. If this was actually given and it's a string, it turns it into a number, assuming it's minutes, seconds. Probably YouTube supports hours, but I don't know that anybody wants to time code an hour-long video. I'll come back in and fix that if I ever get so verbose that I actually make that happen. Generate an error there just to let know, but this sort of thing should never happen because the syntax makes sure that we only think valid time codes are valid time codes. And then that converts the query string to this. So if it was a string, it turns it into a number, and then it's a number to do this. And if it was a number, it's just treated as a number directly. Just sort of a nicer way to handle that. Gives us a little bit more flexibility. Maybe we need it, maybe we don't, and it generates the links. So I think we probably want to do this, and we'll add that at the top. What the hell? Now let's test that other thing we were seeing there. From import, okay. No, YouTube editor dot lib dot make video link, and it has an issue. There's my mouse cursor. But if we did it here, that is irritating in the extreme. Why does that not do what we want? I'm a little confused about why that error persists in occurring. Boo, boo, boo. Hmm. And for some reason, that doesn't work. I mean, except for how it totally works. But when this tries to do it, it does not. I expect this error out of the Python 3.8 host, but not the Python 3.3 host. So let's see. Did it go back to not loading or something? Oh. I do that. Probably. I'm probably being a gigantic moron about how I'm doing this. One of the other things I mentioned at the beginning of the stream is I'm slowly trying to ramp up my, really? Oh, right. I'm trying to ramp up my stream game a little bit. So one of the things that we'd really like to do, apart from not being a moron about that, I'm going to say that I've been working on TypeScript too long, but maybe I'm just not sleeping enough. I'm trying to kick my stream game up a little bit, so I am really working on some sort of animation for, well, that was stupid and such, like for a button to swap in, much like how I created these buttons to be able to jump the camera around if we want to see a different part of the screen, or maybe you want to see me right in the middle. Um, but in any case, that is an error that I've been having for a couple of days because I had a gigantic brain fart. Okay, so the video ID was AAA, then we get that, and we could give this a number like that, or we could give it this, and that works out. It should be what, 75? And that actually causes it to generate an error, which is exactly what we like. So okay, we got that going on. I still don't know why it was getting angry about that line that very clearly has an import, but what can you do? We'll leave that there for the time being. And yeah, okay, let's go back to this. So this is the first bit, something that can just actually, maybe we should change the name of it a little bit. Well, let's wait and see what we got here. So one thing is that, but what we already know is that in order to gather the information that we need to do this bit here, where we have a view and we have an event, and if it has this particular thing, then we need to extract the text out in order to get that part. And also there's the YouTube video ID that comes out of a setting inside of the thing, which is another thing that has to happen. So it would be nice if we had a version of this utility function that could take those two. So if we just need, for some reason, like we're generating some sort of output and we want to generate a link, we can get one very easily text-based doing this. But if we want to generate links for purposes like we already have there from information in a window without having to constantly reinvent the wheel and pull all of that stuff out, we want another version of this. Get window link. Let's call it that. So we're going to need the view that this is inside of. We're going to need an event, maybe. We're going to say what? Oh, actually, you know what? We can always change this name later. So I'll add that and that here right now, and then we don't have to worry about it for the time being, except for that, which is kind of irritating. Like that. Okay, and then we can close that, worry about that later. We have a copy of the relevant code here, although this part is not really anything we care about, so we can get rid of that. So if we wanted to actually get the time part out, we need to have the view and an event so that we can grab the appropriate information out. So that's all we need for that. If we want to get the video ID, we have to have a window which we can get from any particular view if we're interested. Let's say window equals none for this. And we'll see how we get on with this. So the first thing we might say is window equals window or view.window. So you're going to pass in a view, and optionally you can also pass in a window, and anything this needs to do that refers to a window will take it from this window and not from the one that happens to be associated with the view, which gives us the flexibility of knowing that we want a video from one place, but we still want to get the video, the time code from one place and the video ID from a completely different window if we ever need to do that. But also it's theoretically possible for a view to not have a window in some cases, I think. I can't remember what they are offhand, but based on errors that file manager spews into my console from time to time, I think certain transient preview views, I don't think that's necessarily something we will definitely run into for what we're trying to do here. So let's say this. Make and return a link to the video whose details are stored in the given window. If window is none, okay, if an event is provided and the text at the event location is a time code, the generated link will include time code information. That's what we want to have happen here. If the window is not provided, it defaults to the window associated with the given view. And if there's no window or the window has no associated video ID, none will be returned back. Good. So window is window or none. So if window is none or or there's no window ID. So we want something like this. Whoops. Window.settings.get YTE video ID, like so. let's say video ID is equal to none. Then we do that, and then we can say if window is not none, do that. If event is not none, then we want, well, technically this is what we want here. Whoops, but we already have one of those. Probably could have copied that part too, huh? We don't say self view here, we always say view in this one. Hello, Jack. Welcome to the comedy of errors. And that is me spending 2 days wondering about an error that has everything to do with how I was writing an import statement in a way that is definitely not how Python writes import statements, because I'm clever like that. So we're going to get the point that is under the event that is actually provided, and if it is that, oh, and let's just test this here. The scopes for all of these are text.youtube, right? Yeah. I think that is what we want to have for that. So we probably want to put this, then then we can say, we want to say time code is none as well. Okay. Then in this case, time code would be equal to this. We don't need to have that bit of action on there. And so if there was an event, get the text of that event, and if the text under that particular point, that's going to bother me because it directly dings on the last line in that little area there. So if it is that, then extract the scope out of it and convert it, which we're doing in 2 steps because, hey, why not? So when it gets down to this point, the video ID, actually, let's tweak this up slightly. We could make this say if the video ID is none, return none. Or we could make this one do it. And it seems like since this is the thing that's actually responsible for building this, we probably want to do it here. No video ID provided and return none. So we don't even have to do any checks here. The only check we ostensibly do here is that if the window is not none, then video ID doesn't get set, so it'll be none, and that other thing will trigger the error. But otherwise, we don't even need to test if we have one or the other. We can just return make video link, video ID, and time code like this. And I think that's probably all we need really for this action. And that is kind of now nicely abstracted away in theory, except for how I forgot to add a colon on that line. So that's working good. Oops, don't do that. Hey, how did I do that? Oh, I double tapped control. I have a key binding to double tap of control to open the context menu to make my life a little bit easier. Okay, let's go ahead and clear that out and say, okay, we definitely reloaded that. I guess we probably want to test that over here, don't we? Oh, but we don't have an event. Oh, hey, this is kind of broken now. Oh no. Well, that's a hell of a turn of events. Apparently that does work. Shoot. Okay. Well, we'll just for the time being, we can test the one thing, I guess. How? Oh, Ben says had to step out for a moment. How's the stream been going? Well, one thing I noticed is that a problem that I've been fighting for the last couple of days has nothing to do with how some of the code is broken and everything to do with how import statements in Python don't work the same way as they do in TypeScript. So instead of importing a function, I was trying to import a module or a function out of a module that was actually itself. So I mean, that was sort of like the red letter doy of the night. But apart from that, and sort of giving up on that syntax thing because it's less interesting in the time being. Things have been going great, although I did just discover that this, according to YouTube, actually is a valid time code, even though not all of the. Pretty sure I tried it at one point and it didn't work. So stuff that we just finished writing kind of needs to be modified a little bit here. From YouTube editor.lib import make video. No, no, no. I can't remember what I called it. I can't remember what I called it. Get window link. Okay. Don't do that. Okay, so if we said get window, whoops, don't do that. Don't do that. Get window link for this view. There we go. So that totally worked all nicely. And we can even say this if we wanted to force it to be a particular window that's different from the window that we actually have, because you never know when you might want to do that. And the last thing to be able to test this is having the event. So now that we have those elements refactored out here, we're going to need to uh, factor this bad boy. So from commands down to into source, one more into lib, import that. That should work, right? Right on. Now, the ultimate goal of this was to have this be separate commands, right? So I think we might need a slight bit more stuff in here to get this to actually do what we want. But for our purposes here, let's just say that the URL is equal to get the window link for this view with whatever event was provided. Don't even do anything with that. So in theory, it's actually using the code from the utility library instead of this business. Oh, and this business. Let's not get ahead of ourselves here. And that means that this should, in theory, at time code, whoops, shoot, I pushed the wrong key. That will be, uh-oh, global name view is not defined. Oh. Right. I spent so much time working on that other one. Whoops, I forgot that there's actually more stuff that has to go on there. There we go. Let's try that again. We'll try it with an interesting one. That should give us a nice value of 62 on the end of the link. Still no? Hmm. Dict object, you say? Well, that's an intriguing thing. Oh. Maybe we should call it correctly. There's an optional second parameter there. Oh, this being one of those days. Copy video link. Okay, now it's unhappy about. Okay. This is the issue with copying and pasting stuff. I have some more self. Oh, that's right. I didn't have that part commented out. at the time that I did this, or I had it commented out, I should say. This should just be view. There, okay. Copy video link at time code. That worked better. So that one's 62 seconds. That one's there. And if we did here and copied it, it's that. So that is totally cool. Let's do one more factor in here because these functions, these commands, I should say, in order to determine what their dynamic description is going to be, whether it's at a time code or not, need to know if the text under the cursor is a time code, which it can currently do by doing this. But since we factored all of that code out into this routine, that kind of requires us, well, maybe we don't have to. It seems like it would be nice to have a way to grab the time code distinctly from doing this. So let's add one more thing in here. Say get view video time code, let's say, from a view window equals none and event. Yeah, okay. If, okay, we'll say if the text under the cursor at the provided event, at the cursor in the provided view is a time code, capture it as a string and return it back. Do we want to return it as a string? Do we want to return it as a number? Should definitely be none. Where do we more likely to do? Do we want to have this code all over everywhere if we want to convert this one way or the other? No, because we want to be able to make time codes have hours in them and not just minutes and seconds. If there is no time code, okay, sorry, if the text under the cursor is time code, capture it as a string and return it back. None will be, okay, if window is provided, it will be used. Oh, actually, we don't even need a window for this, do we? Because we're just grabbing stuff directly out of the thing. It doesn't need the window. Right. We don't need that one. We can just say that. We probably don't want to say event equals none in that case. We definitely want an event for this. Okay. Capture it as a string and return it back. Okay, we don't need that. Oh, shoot, I did that in the wrong place. Put those back. These are the ones we don't need. Let's pull a little bit of this. Okay. The time code will be returned as a string if okay, now say it the other way. As string controls whether the returned time code is what format the returned time code will be in. Okay. None is returned if there's no time code under the cursor. Okay, so if we had that, then we need a little bit of that, I guess. So the point is, given that view window to text on that event, if it matches that selector, we'll return none explicitly. Okay. If as string, this is one of those things where we get a little unhappy about how long the inline if is for something like this. Here, we're going to say timecode equals get video timecode for this view with that event. Oh, I guess we need to in that case because this event might be none. Okay, so is not none, do this. Right on. We'll pull that part out. So the time code is going to be that, and then this is if time code. Oh, and if time code is not none. Oh, actually, we don't even care about that, do we? We don't need to test it. We just need to do this. So actually, we don't need the extra variable. We just need that part. That's the video ID. That's a time code. It needs to do this part separately because maybe there's no video ID, but that part's not that terrible to do ahead of time because we assume it's mostly going to always work. That's going to pull the value of it out as a number. So when it gets to this one, it's going to skip over that part entirely and hit directly here. We want this to work both ways. So that's sort of unfortunate, isn't it? That our intention was to have the time code to string go one way. So let's make a little helper here because I do think we want that to be its own thing. But I don't want this. This is just going to allow you to pass it either way and to do something with it, right? So we'll just add a quick little convert time code. And oh, something like yeah. Return it as a number. Okay, this is that'll return none. Otherwise, it can just return back the initial time code like this. Okay, and takes a time code value that's either a string or we need to fix a bug with this in just a minute for what's happening in the other video there, or the exemplar video, if you will. That, oh, pardon me. Yeah, what was I saying there? I forget. Takes a timecode value that's either a string or a number and returns it back in a number format. Theoretically, I mean, you could make this only do something with a string, but then there's more than one place that has to do this is instance test, so this is just sort of a nicer way to pull that. If timecode is not none, then timecode is equal to this. Convert timecode, boop, and this would be convert timecode, timecode. Thusly. Okay. Now I think we also want to have this in our little init thing here. Look through it here, get the time code, make a video link, get a window link, and throw that there with a comma. Shoe loads nicely. Good, good. Now let's give that just a little bit of a test, shall we? Get video time code for a view. No, that requires an event, so that's not actually going to work. All right, we're just going to have to do it the other way then. Let's undo all of those things. I did reload this, so if we copy that video link, it says it copied it, and there it is, and it says it copied it with a time of 62, so both of those are working great. That's nice. So now the other issue with it, such as it is this. Is technically something that is valid because that's how this thing actually popped out. And I think the time code, the table of contents function we worked on actually does puts the stuff like that. So that's totally a thing. This little bad boy here for inserting a table of contents. But we have a little bit more stuff to do here. Let's check what we have so far. Yeah, we don't want to do that, do we? We want to say what? Utils now has extra things, get video time code, make video link, and get window link. Both of those are in there. Utils actually implements those three things, plus one unexportable helper. And this imports it and makes life a little bit better there. So what we're going to do here is jump back to the command. We don't need that. That's just gone now. And because of that, this is the other thing that we needed to do. Right. We wanted to get video time code for a particular view. So we need to include that in our import statement so that we can say if get this, and this is going to be self.view and event is not equal to none. Do that. Now, is there any instances of get time query? No, there is not. So that tightens this up a fair bit, makes it a little bit nicer, and it's going to get even better when we split it into multiple commands in just a moment. But just for our own sanity, because various things have gone all funko, everything still seems to be going okay there. And let's pick a different video here so that we can test. So if we get the details for that one, if you're watching the live stream and you didn't know this, on my other channel, link down in the description of this live stream, I have a course on how to get started writing in plugins. And videos all through the month of November on the other channel are going to be plugin 101 related. Okay, so that all seems to have worked. It requested stuff. Now, unfortunately, this is one that doesn't have any time code in it, but we did verify that all of that stuff works, so that's good. So let's do that one more time, and this time we'll choose the license. Oh yeah, is there a free version of Sublime is what that one's called. See, this is an example of one that was actually correct, such as it is, with the leading zeros in front. So those other ones might have been ones that I created myself, but they clearly work. So the video link for this is that, and the video link at this time code is that. So it totally works. And here it's saying copy video link and view on YouTube. And here it's saying time code. So all of that does exactly what we want it to do. So I think this is ready to commit. So, and look at that, it's 10 o'clock. This is actually the thing we actually wanted to do here, but I think we might go a little bit long on this stream too, like we did the other day. It's kind of a fun little operation. For the purposes of this, let's try this. I'm going to put myself up in that corner so that you can see a little bit better what's happening down in the corner of the window if you want to see what the code is while we're viewing it. So It actually works pretty good. One of the other things I did was modify the graphic I use to match my color scheme because I changed my interface to be dark. And it kind of bothered me that that was still using the non-light thing because this tiny bit of the caption area that where the window controls are was displaying the wrong color, and I'm not a fan of that. So we say here in our utils thing, there's three new things, and they are exported should anybody want them. And here they are being actually implemented. And in this, we actually pull in two of those ones. We don't need all of them. Now, if we want to get the video link, we just call the function. We don't have to get this video ID to get the video ID and then ask it for a time query to get the actual query string that goes on to the end to be able to produce it, which just one nice line of code. This part's still kind of manky. And down in the description, we need to know if we need to add @time code to the descriptions of these commands or not. So instead of using the self get time query, we can just ask what the time code for this video is at this location. And if there is one, then go ahead and do that. And that means we don't need this particular code. So let's go ahead and stage that and that and that. And before we commit, let's just jump over here quickly and recap what it was that we did for these to make sure everything is cool. We have a function that is set to be private, so it can't be pulled out anywhere else. That converts a time code in that format of minute, minute, colon, second, second to be um, an actual number of seconds because that's what YouTube wants in its parameter on the end of the URL. So you can pass this a number or a string. If you pass it a string, it'll convert it into the number, and otherwise, it will just return the number directly. And we don't really anticipate there being an issue with this, but just in case the string that's provided is invalid, it generates something to the console before it returns none, which is probably going to cause something to throw an error somewhere along the lines because it expects a time code when it didn't actually get one. That'll allow us to look in the console, see that we did that, and then we'll realize that we did something really stupid. But that should never happen because everything that's currently doing this is doing it based on what the syntax says is a time code, and the syntax is highlighting the correct stuff. So that part should never actually happen. Now, if we actually said we wanted to create a video link, we need a video ID and optionally some time code. If there wasn't a video ID provided, then much like that prior thing, we're going to say that no ID was provided, return no link. Maybe the code actually checks if it actually thought there was supposed to be one or not. If it gets a little complacent, it's going to generate an error. We'll look in the console. We'll see that. We'll realize we did something dumb because every place we use this should be something where the video ID is actually provided. Like you would normally call this manually. If you call this with a null, you're like an idiot, right? So we'll totally catch those errors because we're doing testing. Then the query string to add on to the end is an empty string, but if it's not none, it's converted into a number and converted into the appropriate thing and then just concatenated in there exactly the way we like to see with the format string. And again, as a reminder, we're using this format. I don't like to technically use the string.format method. Sometimes it seems like it's a little bit more verbose than this, which is a little bit more succinct. And we're not using f strings because we're running in the Python 3.3 plugin host because we need some dependencies, and dependencies aren't currently available in the new plugin host just yet. And I don't want to fiddle around with the syspath on my own in order to make it work just to get Python 3.8 support. I'm willing to wait and then cycle through and fix this when package control actually supports that. The next helper we have here is get video time code, which is going to take a view that represents a view in one of these windows here. That's the theory. And specifically, it also needs an event that gives it a location like so. We can always come back here and provide this with a point if we wanted to as well instead of an event, so that if there wasn't an event but there was a point, then you could actually get this other ways. But we're going to wait and see if we actually need that. And it's going to say that if there actually is an event, take the location of where the event actually occurred, convert it into a point, and then if that point in this view is a time code and this is a YouTube thing, then we can extract The extract scope expand gets a region that covers the entire scope that's applied to that particular point, which is going to get us the whole time code. And then we grab that value out if we were asked to return it as a string. We do. Otherwise, we return it as a number, and we return none if we were not provided an event. And lastly, get window link is going to take a view, which again is going to be a view somewhat like this. Optionally, if you want to, you can provide a window if you want to gather the information that we get from a window from a different window than this particular one, which may or may not be interesting at some point. And optionally, this can take an event. And the reason that both of these things, the reason that this takes an event optionally and why this doesn't necessarily require it is because the event only happens when you interact with the mouse, but you still want to be able to call these in other situations. You just don't get timecode information because it doesn't have any way to extract it out of the buffer. So by default, there is no video ID, but we can get the timecode by using that, which is going to return us back a number or none. We don't need to care one way or the other about that. Uh, then the window is going to be the window that was provided, but if it's none, it'll be the one that's in the view. Most of the time, this is probably going to be none, but there can be cases where maybe this view doesn't have a window associated with it just yet, but we happen to know that there is one. Say if we were doing something in an on-close event handler would be one case where that might happen. You might need to capture the window from somewhere else and then pass it in, something along those lines. And Ashwin says it looks like community members are joining in. So hello to everybody from the community that happens to be watching. Feel free to chime in on the chat with questions, comments about how dumb my bugs are sometimes. This is the joy of Devember. We're just working on a YouTube editing package here because I like to do so much stuff in Sublime. You know, as you watch my videos, I am a Sublime Text fanatic, self-proclaimed. I even want to manage my YouTube channel from inside of Sublime. It's such a nice editing experience. You know, you use Control D to select stuff or wrap things in quotes, and you try to do that in the browser, and it doesn't work. It's a sad town. But once we have a window here in this last window link, if it's not none, we can get its setting. And if that actually gives us, we actually just call make video link. So this is always going to work unless the window that's provided isn't a YouTube window, then it's not going to have a video ID associated with it. So this will end up calling this, which is going to return that error, which is not something that should ever happen because you should only ever call this if you actually want to capture the URL out of a view such as this one right here. If you want to just generate a link out of a video ID that you already know, well, there's a thing for that. It's this one. Just call this one with that, and it'll work for you. So let's say this is refactor link generation. There's going to be one thing here, right? So we're going to go ahead and commit that. And again, because it's horrendous enough to watch me type out some of the longer comments in the code. When it comes to committing stuff, I'm just throwing up real simple commit messages here to let myself know what these are. But then later on, before I push the commits up, which happens shortly after every live stream, and every day of Devember as well, not just necessarily a live stream, I actually flesh the thing out to make it a little bit nicer for what it's actually supposed to be. And so we got that going on. Now, the other thing that we actually wanted to do here, the reason why we refactored all this stuff in the first place, is because this should actually be two commands. It should be get video link and view video link, right? And both of these things are more or less identical. All that's really going to be different is this is the one for getting the URL, this is the one for viewing the URL, and we would need only one of those two things. And they share and is enabled and a want event. So this is an example of something that I could create a common subclass that provides and is enabled and a want event so that this command and the one that we're about to make doesn't have to provide them, which does have its benefits in if you decided that the is enabled needs to go a certain way, you could edit it in both. But on the whole, this way commands are self-contained and that's not a terrible amount of duplication. So let's go ahead and save this as view video link like this. And we'll say that this is view video link, so it's not going to have a copy equals true in here like so, and it's not going to have an open in browser either. it's just going to do this. That's nice and tight. And view on YouTube at timecode, view on YouTube. And that's the whole of this command. And then the other one was get video link, which is this one. And again, we're going to have to fix some stuff here. We don't need the copy. We don't need the open in browser. We just need that. We're going to get this thing. Now, this is actually going to be the, it says get video link. Let's call it copy video link because that's what the description is going to describe it as. And that's what this described it as. So we don't need that. We can indent those. That's all we need there. If there's a video timecode, copy link at timecode. Otherwise, copy video link, and that's done. And then we come back to this one. We're going to want that. We're going to need to modify this a little bit. Get video link. I'm probably going to want to rename that file too, I guess. Oh, we forgot some stuff in here too. So that's good to know. YouTube editor copy video link. And the other one is, oh wait, did I just do that the wrong way? That's copy video link, right? Yeah, okay, so from dot view video link import view video link command and a little bit of that. View a video on YouTube, possibly with time code. Now, let's also say as a part of this refactory type operation that we're happy with view video link, but this file should actually be renamed to copy video link instead because it matches what's going on there. And then this needs to be copy video link, but more importantly, authorize logout list videos, new window, video details. Those aren't in the correct order, so that's kind of irritating. So since we're going to fix this anyway, let's go ahead and do that. It goes authorize logout list videos, video details. Then the next one is new window, navigate, get Camtasia talk, and then it's going to be these two right here. So we'll go ahead and copy those. And cut them out of there and stick them in here because we want those files to reload, and that might be part of a reason why I was having a weird issue last night with a command technically not seeming to work the way that it's supposed to. And as in all things, when you fiddle faddle that sort of thing, you do a little bit of this action. And oh, look at that, we totally broke it. From module, right. These have to go in a couple of places. Pardon me. Copy those out. There's also one here for the actual commands. So that one shouldn't be there, and instead it'll look like this. Should make that part a little bit happier. I forgot that there's multiple levels of abstraction in that one. And incidentally, this stuff here about sublinnet starting, initializing, entering network loop stuff, that's the reason why for YouTube Editor I decided that all of its output should go to the persistent panel. Sublinnet doesn't currently do that. Only some things go to the panel and not everything, but it's kind of annoying how that works in the panel there. So everything seemed to have loaded correctly there. Now the other thing that we have to do here if we actually want this to do something is we're going to need to fiddle with the menus a little bit. Oh, and I realized I left the camera up in that corner. Let's put it back down there so we can go back to the regular thing. I forgot I moved it up there. That's a little bit of new functionality I added today. Also the ability to do this if I want to. If we needed to hide me entirely. And then if I, it's an easy operation to bring it back, which technically is something I could have done before if I fumble around with OBS, but moving the window around the screen and having it snap to a good location is totally something that was unavailable to me previously. Okay, so we don't need that. We don't need that. We don't need that. Well, let's leave that one open for the time being. We don't need that. Actually, we only need one of these two, so let's do that because we're going to need these three menus open. This one, and this one. Because these commands are slightly different now. And as a matter of fact, we don't need that, and we don't need this because these are now two commands, right? Wait, how did I have this going? One is open in browser. Where did, oh, that one's actually something that used to exist that doesn't anymore, right? There's view video link. Is that what that is? No. That's the one that we just added in here. Yes. We should fix the comment on this before we check it in. And can open just very quickly with the current video in a browser, possibly at a time code. It's going to be that one, and that's view video link and copy video link are the two things that we're interested in. That one already has a good comment, so there we go. So that one was view video. Whoops, that's not the file that we actually wanted, is it? No, it's not. View video link, copy video link. Can I remember that? I'm going to guess that the answer to that question is no. It's going to be copy video link, and this is going to be view video link. Let's say we don't need that. This is in the title. Well, I mean that should be okay. Extract that part out and that part out. So in this window, there's copy video link and view on YouTube. So if I copy this, it says it copied down there. We can see that's what it copied. And if I picked view on YouTube, that works as well. Perfect. So that part works, and if that works, that means, whoops, that's not the right window. It caught me by surprise when the window over there flipped over to YouTube. I thought the stream stopped or something. I got it going on. I know what's happening here. Oh, sorry, that's the one we want. Those windows are in the wrong order now. So actually, maybe, yeah, just those two. So we're going to do that in tags as well, and in the body. Oops, don't copy that part. In the body as well. Save all of those. So that'll still copy, that'll still link, and we can check this one. We did this and did view on YouTube. It should open at the time code, and it totally does. Right on. So that is doing exactly what we want. We've done our little refactor here. So if we were to check these things here, and these are going to be pretty small changes, so I'm not going to move my head and then forget that I moved it. Incidentally, if you happen to be watching the stream and my big fat head is blocking what you'd like to see, let me know, because sometimes I forget where the camera is located and that you may or may not be able to see what's actually underneath it. So Menu item, good. Menu item, good. Menu item, good. We replaced get video link with copy and view. And we fixed a bug here where we changed it from get to copy and view in that one. The thing that's underneath my head is the version of it where it's getting exported out. As a matter of fact, I could probably do that. No, I guess not. Sort of see it under my head there a little bit, but that's neither here nor there. And the important part was this, because if a module doesn't appear in this list, it's not going to get hot reloaded when the package reloads, which is no end of weirdness. We deleted get video link. Yes, we did. And we actually added in copy video link and view video link, the two new commands. So we can say this, factor one command into two is that particular action. So we're got that going on there. And the other thing that we wanted to fiddle with is, and does anybody remember what video it was that we were looking at here where this did not seem to come up as a valid time code? I'm going to say the 1K subscriber special is probably the one. One of the things we got to do in this is throw a spinner somewhere to make it easier to see. No, that's not the one. Oh, yeah, it is. So this actually works. If we were to view this on YouTube, we can actually test that now. Pause that up. Um, it actually treats these as links, so I could jump that over to there if we wanted. So we have an issue here twofold in that our syntax doesn't recognize this, but also the thing we're using to parse this is kind of naive and assumes it's going to be two characters, so we need to make that smarter as well. So in that case, that should be simple enough to fix that particular problem. We also probably want something like that to work as well, but it currently doesn't. Is this a non-capturing group? I can never remember if someone knows off the top of their head if it's this. Equal sign is look ahead, right? And the question mark that is like a non-capturing, I think. Okay. There we go. Oh, unfortunately, we broke it for the other part, though. Oh, right. That part has to be optional. There we go. I mean, I don't necessarily like that that works, but technically it'll work. So let's call that good. So that's one aspect of this is that. So now we know this is going to be 1, 2, or 3 numbers separated by colons. And then this is the reason why we did the factoring of this. We'll leave that open for the time being in case we realize we've done something terrible. But utils at, it was in utils, right? At main? Really? That's interesting. Is it just me, or is this not displaying the correct information? Because It definitely seems to be previewing utils.py, but the only thing that it thinks in here is one of the symbols from the syntax that's currently displayed in this panel. Huh. And then when you actually open it, the symbol list actually has the correct stuff in it. I'm going to guess that that's not how that's supposed to work. It seems very counterintuitive if it is. I will say that. Um, cool. So the one thing we want to do is that. So if x was equal to, say, 1:14, and then we did parts is x dot split on that, then we want int x 0 times 60 plus int x 1, right? Oh, whoops. Which would give us the value that we want. But if there was an extra hours component in there, then it's a little bit different. I could think of a couple of ways to do that. Split it that way. Whoops, don't do that. If we looked up a little bit of this action, oh, that's not a thing. Oh, array insert, right. Inserts a new item with value x in the array before position I. Okay, so kind of, I could have just 50-50'd that. Insert at 0, 0. So the simplest thing to do is that. That should still work as valid code, right? And then let's do that because this is going to be T0 plus T1 plus, oh, that should be a T, pardon me, plus T2. This will be times 60. Whoops, 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 whoops. 60 seconds in a minute, 60 minutes in an hour. And a little bit of that. The first part is hours, the second part is minutes, the third part is seconds. It's not sensitive to whether there's a leading 0 on it or not, I sincerely hope. That comes across as 9, so it's not thinking it's octal because it starts with 0 or some such. Which frankly is an exciting turn of phrase. And we took the hacky expedient here of saying that if there's only minutes and seconds, then go ahead and stick fake hours onto the front of the list so that we don't have to make this part more complicated. That sort of makes it a one-line thing. Otherwise, it needs to do T1 times 60 plus T2 times 60 and then add in T0, or it needs to do it this way. And I mean, one way or the other, you're going to need to examine the length of the list to see what it's going to do. So this seems a little bit more succinct and, at the expense of 0 times that. I mean, probably if you said int 0, you automatically get the value back, right? So we could do this so that it doesn't have to convert it, but I kind of like the expediency of that. So if we reload that and everything seems to be okay, we came over to here. We're going to go ahead and copy that. That should, whoops, copy at time code. It's going to give us a time code of, shoot, well, we broke something. Got a bad time code. Oh, it's because it's eating the exception, and there's something else going on here. Try to keep all the different exception handling methods you know in your head. Global name E is not defined. What stupid thing did I do here? Oh. That's not how that works, is it? Why can I not remember how that actually works? Well, you know what? It's one thing we can do if we want to see what it's doing, and that's this. I'll brute force this so that I don't have to try and figure out at this late date how that's supposed to actually go, because I've used too many languages with too many almost but not quite the same exception handling things. Oh, I see what happened there. That's a heck of a fun bug. I bet that probably works a little bit better. Copy video link at time code. Actually copied 62 seconds, which is what we would expect. This should be like, what, 120 plus that, so like 161. And that's what happened. We can see that there. It may or may not be visible, but it displays something in the status bar there to say what it actually copied. So what should this be? A very large number. If there's 60 minutes, 60 seconds in a minute, and 60 minutes in an hour, and that's 1 hour, plus 12 minutes at 60 seconds in a minute, that's 4320, which is what that came up with. So in theory, that might actually do something if we had a video that long. So I think that actually works out quite nicely for what it is that we would like to do here. And we can go ahead and fix this stuff back out the other way. Just go ahead and fix those. Reload. And, whoops, we want this bad boy for this one. So what are the things that we did here? We enhanced our, well, if we did it in this way, we could see them probably a little bit better because they'll be above my big giant melon-like head. We expanded the time code thing so that instead of insisting that it be exactly 2 digits followed by a colon followed by 2 digits in this one that we whipped up on day one, it now separates it by colons, and it also supports hours at the beginning. So there needs to be 3 parts. So if there's only two, we add in a fake, we pretend there was 0 hours stuck onto the front of it just to make the rest of this nicer. And because we're now splitting it at the colons in the thing instead of at specific points, we can have or not have leading digits if we want. So that was a very easy change to make. And then we just go ahead and convert this into the number of seconds that's needed. Previous refactors use this code, a call to this, to do all of their time code conversion. So this is one of those reasons why you try to factor code to have as few copies of it as possible. Now, everything that needs a time code has this, which is exactly what we would like it to have. That is always good practice. And we augmented the syntax here. It used to require exactly 2 numbers, a colon, and 2 numbers. Now, it requires optionally, this part's optional, at least one, maybe 2 numbers, and it has to be followed by a colon, whether it's 1 or 2. Then optionally there can be 1 number, but there can be a second number here and followed by a colon. And then the number of seconds, we're going to say always has to be 2 because it's not, it's probably technically would still work, but it just looks so dang ugly. Who wants to fiddle with that? Not me. So the syntax is going to make sure that everything that we do with time codes uses the constant numeric time code to know that that's the span of text. This enforces it's in the correct way. So the code that we added for this is definitely going to not have problems. The only time that this error should happen is if someone manually calls this with a time code they got from somewhere else. So this would be expand time code functionality, like so. Okay, we'll go ahead and ship that one up. Now there's, I mean, we should have stopped 40 minutes ago, but Devember, like I said, it's a fun time. It's been a while since I got to. I should do Devember type stuff more often, but often I get caught up in doing other things and sort of miss the pure joy of fiddling around with packages. Do spend a lot of time writing plugins to help people. Oh, whoops. Anything going on in the thing there? No, no, it's cool. Alrighty, couldn't close that up. Again, yeah, we're arranging a little bit of a surprise for some people in one of the chats in the Discord, and because I'm streaming, notifications are turned off. So every time I happen to notice that there's a notification there, I check to see if everything is cool. The last thing that we want to play with today, I mean, clearly we also want to support time codes in the first line, but I don't know that I would necessarily put one there, so that's something that we kicked down the road a little bit. But we would be the Camtasia contents command, which is this one here. We could actually do some stuff to actually make this a little bit nicer. But the thing that we're actually looking for here is this. Is this? Let's check this out. Okay, it says it takes a callback, and file types is a specification of allowable file types. This parameter should be a list containing 2-element tuples. The first one being a string containing a description, and the second one being a list of things with valid extensions without an actual extension on it, because this is something that has been bugging me for a bit. I thought I did that. I never actually checked. Well, I mean, we kind of tested it. I don't know that. Oh, hang on. Let's reload the plugin so that it actually has the new code. Insert table of contents. Now, see, it doesn't seem to have any effect here. You have to do this, and then, oh, that's an extra bug to fix. That's good. This needs to have insert equals true. So we need to get to the body menu and add some args here, like this. I don't like the way that went. So let's go ahead and do a little bit of that. Okay. That's sort of another issue with that. But if we did that again, now see, when we did this originally, and this wasn't in Devember, this was in one of the live streams, one of the ones that Ben was in, as a matter of fact, I think. Perhaps the first one where he came to visit. I did this, and it did not seem like it was doing anything with regards to having a file filter. But I assume that's just because the GTK file dialogues are garbage, or at least the ones in GTK3. Hate this so much that you have to press a key to be able to do this. So I just assumed that it wasn't properly displaying because this file dialog doesn't know how to do it. But under Windows, it also didn't do it, and I've been meaning to look for that because my folders that have my video projects in them have a lot of other content as well. There we go. So that part actually works now, which is good. And I'll be able to test that on Windows and see if it's actually filtering. But the thing that made me think of that is this. Let me see if I can do this without screwing up the stream too much. If I click this, then I can take this over to, let's say, here. I'm fiddling with OBS at the moment here. And then say, oh, do I not have the ability to look at properties for things that are the current thing? Huh, that's interesting. Well, never mind then. That's neither here nor there. But one of the things that I was noticing was that when I add in, uh, I was trying to add videos, clips to replace the static cards that we have for some of these things, and the file dialog was actually had some sort of list down in the corner. So I thought maybe actually that is something that should work. Oh, maybe I'm looking at the wrong thing here. Let's see. If I was to click this and pick that, I think I can bring this over here and we can see it. Whoa, that is neither here nor there. That is a little large for what we want. But if I was to say that I want to browse for something, this dialog has this. So when I saw that, I thought, hey, shouldn't this other file dialog also have that? But it doesn't seem to gather it. But we should probably double check that I'm doing it correctly. And for some reason, it doesn't want to play this particular video, and I don't know why, which is kind of an unfortunate turn of events as these things go. Let me put this back to the way that it's actually supposed to be before I mess something up too hardcore. Let's go back to the code. This needs to be a list. So I probably had a double fail there. Or not, because it still doesn't seem to want to do it. What are all the arguments here? The first thing is the callback. It calls pick file. The next thing is the file types. This parameter should be, let's turn the sidebar off so we can get more action there. A list, which it is, containing 2-element tuples. This is a tuple. It is two elements. The first one is a string containing the description. The second one is a list of strings with valid extensions. For example, without the period, so that seems to be good. The directory to open the file dialog in, which defaults to the last folder, which might be your user folder or the thing that you set in your setting. Indicate the user should be allowed to select multiple files. No. Allow select folders. No. So I would really expect this. Make sure that it does in fact reload to actually have that filter down at the bottom, but it doesn't seem to. And I also don't see any errors in that thing either. Let's play with this a little bit for a second. Open dialog. And file types is going to be a list, it said, and the list is going to be tuples. Let's actually take the example that it has here. A list containing this, let's say. A list containing this. That should be all the things that we need to provide to this. We can provide it the dictionary, if not specified, directory of the current view. That'll be fine. It would totally be able to find Python files. We don't care about those two things. Let's see what happens if I do this. I might get mad. Nope. Does not seem to do stuff. I'm gonna test that on Windows later, just to see after the stream is all said and done. We're not seeing any errors in there. Why that might actually be the case? It might be a GTK thing. Maybe it's something to do with my distribution and what my distribution's doing with its file dialogues. Certainly, ever since I upgraded this machine and GTK3 was a thing on it, I've been unhappy about that file dialog as a whole, as have been many people on the internet all this time. But let's go ahead and say this. We'll stage that, and say fix talk insert as one last thing. So we've done a fair amount of stuff if we compare between there and there. We've added 200 lines and removed 117. If that is related to the total lines deleted between these two commits. So that's a fair amount of shuffling around, to be sure. But I think pretty good night. I've been pondering live stream coming up this weekend here, but I'm not sure how well that'll work because I do have some more work to do on the video that's going to be coming out on the other channel on Monday. And at the same time, I clearly have Devember stuff that has to happen and devlogs on days that there aren't live streams. So I'm thinking that unless things go exceptionally well, there's probably not going to be another stream until next Tuesday at 8. And those are going to be scheduled in advance, possibly early in the day on the same day, maybe ahead of time. We'll have to see how that works out, the live streams. Now, if you're subscribed to the channel, I'll definitely do it in enough time that if you subscribe to me and ring the bell notification icon, pardon me, I got something caught in my throat, that YouTube should tell you about it uh, at least at least a half an hour before the time, but generally before that, because it'll tell you that it's something that's scheduled and ask you if you want to set a reminder to let yourself know. Um, but we'll see how we get on with that little bit of information. For now, I'm going to try to stop jiggling the desk so much because that seems to jiggle the camera around, and say that this has been a great Devember. Again, we have gone almost 3 hours on this bad boy. Last time it was 2 hours, 59 minutes, and some number of seconds. Fell just short of the 3 hour mark. I kind of like the idea of these longer streams, particularly through Devember, as we're working on sort of one concerted project. So we might continue doing those sorts of longer streams. And I'm also thinking that one of the streams that happens near the end of the year, when they happen, if there's an ad hoc one that happened during the day, might just go on for like a while. We might even jump into a live stream in Devember that's not necessarily Devember and just sort of working on packagey related stuff. We'll see what's going on there. But that's going to do it for tonight's live stream. Thanks so much for everybody who came out and watched. Remember, you can use the buttons down below, thumb, subscribe, share, ring the bell notification icon, know about stuff that's happening here. For the month of Devember, there's going to be one video every day, either a video that's released sometime in the evening, nowish, let's say, whatever your time zone is right now, if you have to be watching this live, or 11 o'clock PST, if that works better for you. Or there'll be a live stream on this channel until November is done, and then we'll go back to just weekly live streams on this channel. And then on my other channel, link down in the description, Monday videos. All through Monday, those are going to be plugin 101 videos, where I believe the schedule has us doing common things to do with views, things that people are always asking about, actually being able to do something with the content of a file, getting selections, grabbing text out, figuring out where regions are for lines and things of that nature. Hopefully it'll be a fun time. Until then, though, this is Odat Nerd asking everybody out there to please have a sublime day, night, afternoon, whatever the time is for you. Thanks so much for watching, and once we're done here, and I'm gonna fix up all of this code, push it up to the GitHub repository, which is linked down in the description below the video if you want to play around with it yourself, and then get on figuring out why OBS is being a big old jerk about my end title cards. But until then, have a sublime day.